honestly, he could not have known it, the effect on me. I thought, God, nobody ever did that for me.
Right. That's what entrenches the trauma in your system.
For many, many years, I have to tell you, I didn't see myself as a victim of trauma.
Hmm.
Um, I just got on with life. We had to survive, and there was no time for what you might have said at the time was a sort of luxury of sitting there and saying, "Oh, I'm so traumatized." It never would have occurred to me. However, with time, uh, my thoughts have changed, my feelings have changed.
How so?
Well, um, I started to realize uh, that the events that caused our forced departure from Jerusalem. Now, I was a child, um, and what happened was that on one level, uh, we lost we lost everything, really.
No.
But as a child, for me as a child, I didn't understand any of that. I just understood that the world was no longer the same, and I just didn't know when the other world would return. So, it was a bit like that. But because of the necessity to get on, which is the message my parents gave us all, we've got to get on, we've got to manage, we've got to eat, we've got to find shelter, all this sort of business. The result was that it was like somebody running away from a danger and petrified the danger will catch them, so they got to keep running. So it was a bit like that. But what I didn't understand at the time, but I do now, looking back, is that kind of transformed itself, that constant running, into a way of life. It was normal to always have to be pressing on with, in my case, went to university, my, took my degree, next looked for a job in the march of events, if you like. Um, there wasn't time, there was no awareness even that one has to kind of stop, take stock, think, what's this? Why am I here? What's going on, etc. So now that has only with time that looking back, reflecting back, it's only got deeper and more questioning for me.
So,
Um,
so Ghada, as you tell me this, um, do you have any emotions around that? Like, what are you experiencing when you talk about this stuff?
how do you mean?
Do you have any emotions around what you're talking about?
Well, yes, I feel I feel sad. I feel very sorry for myself.
Hmm.
And I feel that I've somehow let myself down.
How
That,
so?
well, that in not understanding, in not trying to understand what really happened and how it has affected me, a sort of running away. Never mind running away from the danger, it was running away from myself
All right.
to.
So if I understand you right, you are critical of yourself for having quote unquote run away. Is that the case?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm normally quite intuitive. I'm quite sensitive. I pride myself on the fact that I'm subtle. And yet, where this is concerned,
Yeah,
I,
but sorry to interrupt, but I had to laugh because the I can totally relate, first of all. Um, for a long time in my life, if anybody asked me, what are you feeling? I would have said, I have no idea. If you'd asked me, what are you thinking? I could always give a very eloquent answer. But it's the self-criticism and even the shame that you seem to be um, owning now. That's what I want to address because
mm,
that running away that you did, as you call it, was actually a coping mechanism. You
mm,
didn't you didn't do it deliberately. What morning, Hada, did you wake up and said to yourself, I'm going to run away? Did you?
no,
That wasn't a conscious decision.
no, not at
Therefore,
all.
therefore, the self-criticism is misplaced because it was simply a coping mechanism of your organism um, to not to experience feelings that you just weren't ready for. You didn't have the support for or the understanding for. And your parents, bless their souls, um, they basically advised you to run away from yourself, not to not to feel what you're feeling, but just to get on with coping, which is a fairly very understandable response on the part of refugee parents who'd lost everything, you know, their home, their homeland, their future, um, as they had envisioned it. But in other words, when a child is experiencing that loss, if there's nobody there to hold them with their feelings, all they can do is to shut down to the feelings. So you didn't do that. Your organism did it as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Therefore, to criticize yourself for it is to reject yourself.
Mm,
It's not very kind to you. If I said to you, I've been through the same thing where for a long time my refuge was my intellect um, and my capacity for work. Would you criticize me for it?
no.
Well, you're criticizing yourself. So notice the double standard
Mm,
where, where it's okay for me to have had to adapt that particular coping mechanism, but it's not okay for you. So it's either not okay for me, and it's not okay for you, or it's okay for both of us. So you choose.
yes, yes, yes. Very good. Very interesting.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I look, what really was done to us as Palestinians in 1948, it is terrible. It's terrible. It's unconscionable.
Yeah.
Um, it- Now, as I wrote in my memoir in Search of Fatima, much of the trauma was understood at the time uh, to be, having to find a camp, a refugee camp for people, helping them to survive, keeping them together because people lost their children at the time. What nobody talked about much was those subtler forms of response, of effect, of trauma, subtler in people like me, who, because of our material circumstances, we did not end up in a camp. We were able to go to an advanced country, Britain, and my father had work, we had money enough to eat and the basic necessities of life. So I would meet, I think this is where it came from. It came from outside me. People who almost implied or actually said, well, at least you found a roof over your head, you were able to get on, got a good education, as if to say, so that's all right then.
No, well, here's the thing that you never do. You don't compare trauma.
Mm.
you know, I could always say to anybody here in North America, well, at least you're not starving to death. At least you're not living in the rubble amidst rats like people in Gaza. Uh, at
Mm.
least you're not facing extermination like people do in the Sudan. So what are you complaining about? But that's profoundly unkind.
Yeah,
If if a 3-year-old comes to you and their pet cat had just died and they're in grief, would it be helpful to them to say, well, what are you crying about? Think of all the people who've lost their parents. Would so it's profoundly unkind to oneself or to anybody else to compare traumas. Trauma is a wound,
yeah.
and that's literally what the word means. And you don't compare one wound to another. And the fact that other people may objectively have it worse, which is almost always the case, in no way mitigates the pain of the wound that you sustained. And when it comes to the Palestinians, it's not just 1948. I mean, with the Jews, if it was only 1943 or 1942 to 1945, um, that'd be bad enough, but imagine if it was continuing. And not only was it continuing, it was denied by the world because that's the situation of the Palestinians. It's not just what happened in 1948. Had what 1948 happened, but it had been acknowledged by the world and responded to empathetically, and measures taken to make sure that it's over and finished with, that it's not going to continue, it still would have been difficult and bad enough. But in fact, not only is it ongoing, it's been escalating over the decades. And not only has it been escalating over the decades, it's been denied. Um, your father worked for the BBC Arabic service. Well, the BBC has been a major denier of Palestinian experience, as has most of the British press or the North American press, all politicians in the Western world, so that it's not just the original trauma, it's the ongoing aggravation and exacerbation of that trauma, which continues to this day. And not only does it continue, it gets worse with every day that passes. So, um, well, what I'm saying is, give yourself a break and don't tell yourself stories that I should have dealt with this or it's not as bad as other people. That's not very kind, nor is it accurate, actually.
Yeah, I think that's very, very insightful, very, very accurate. Yes, the state of denial, which was all around me, did not make this any easier. Uh,
Yeah,
it led, of course, it led to my thinking, well, maybe, it's not that important. Maybe they're right. Maybe it
yeah,
wasn't such a big deal.
yeah.
Yeah, it's awful. That's really awful. It's being cheated. It's being not even being allowed the capacity to grieve, to be angry. It's been denied. Um, but I also sort of began to understand something else, which was that one of the other ways I think I dealt with this
Hmm.
was to become politically active.
Yeah,
Now, anybody who knows my history knows how important that's been in my
yeah,
life.
yeah.
But what I didn't really understand, and I'm just beginning dimly to discern now, is that it wasn't just that I was politically active and quite rightly, and who can blame me? And we must do what we can about Israel, all the rest of it. But it was my using that method to uh, deal with the emotional trauma. So, if you keep yourself busy with planning a demonstration or writing some article about Israeli conduct or something, you are not looking at what's really happened to you.
I understand that, and it's not one or the other, by the way. Let me tell you a parallel example from my own life. So, I'm what, 5 years younger than you are, and in the 1960s, there was the Vietnam War, and I live in Canada, but I was active in the anti-war movement,
Mm,
and there were psychologists at the time who said, you know, these young people who are rebelling. It's not about Vietnam, it's about their unresolved childhood feelings towards their parents and against authority and so on, you know. And I used to hate that
mm,
because I said, you're just invalidating our perspective, which is that peasants in Vietnam should not be napalmed.
mm.
Children should not die, and the world's strongest military should not be dropping poison on the lands and fields and forests of Vietnam. But the truth was, later on, I realized they were actually right. They were not totally right because what we're saying about Vietnam was absolutely correct and it was a horrendous crime against humanity. But driving our emotions was also unresolved stuff. And so the solution is not that it's one or the other, it's that activists need to maintain their activism, but at the same time, deal with their own stuff. So
Mhm,
it's not one or the other. And
mhm.
what you're describing is a fairly typical trap that activists get into, where they, you know, they pour their unresolved emotional pain and anger into the political activity, and without sort of dealing with the pain that's underneath it.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I wonder to myself, having reached the age that I have, um, where, where, where will this end? What, how many layers have I got to go through to understand that maybe it's endless. The number of layers is endless.
Well, wait a minute now. That's an assumption.
Mm,
That's a belief. Okay. Number one. Number
mm,
two, Hada, the question you just asked can be asked in two ways. One is, how many layers will it take? How much more do I have to go through? That's one way to ask it. The other way to ask it, I wonder how many more layers there are. I wonder what else I have to discover yet. The first one is not a question, it's a statement. It says, I don't want to do this anymore, or I'm despondent, or I believe it'll never end.
mm.
The other one is just curiosity. Okay, what else is there left to understand? What else is there to discover? So it depends with what attitude you're asking the question. Because the first way of asking is not a question at all, it's a statement.
Yes, yes. I mean, you're right. You're right.
And,
You
and,
know,
and, and sorry, one more thing. So your assumption that it's endless and therefore beyond resolution, that's an assumption. That's a working theory. It may be accurate, it may not be, but it's only a theory. It's not reality. It can be examined.
yeah. You see, I think the I think that the way that I think about it
Hmm.
is because I've spent so many years not understanding what actually happened, and then started to understand bit by bit that the trauma was deeper, that it
Hmm.
was much more complex than I had thought.
Hmm.
I suppose the thought uppermost in my mind is it even deeper than what I can see so far? And is it even more complex? That's really the question.
Yeah, yeah, but listen, you're approaching it like a typical intellectual. You're trying to figure this out in your mind.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, your mind will never give you the answers. Um, there's a therapist that once said to me that if your parents don't know how to hold you, you develop the mind to hold yourself with. So you're obviously you're a highly educated and intelligent intellectual. That's your strength, but it's also your weakness because you use that intellect um, to try and figure things out that the intellect by itself is not capable of sorting out. It's much simpler than that, but it's also much more difficult because to really work it out is not an intellectual question. I could give you all the intellectual answers, but they wouldn't mean a thing because it's not through the intellect that healing happens.
Yeah.
By the way, I often said about myself, if intellectual understanding could facilitate healing, I would have been healed a long time ago. But, but I can teach all this stuff and intellectually grasp it and even be very eloquent in speaking about it. But that's not the same thing as doing the inner work, because the two are not the same at all.
Look, you're right. And I know, and I have known for a long time, that I use my intellect uh,
Yeah,
in lieu of feeling, really.
yeah, yeah.
And it's something I learned a long time ago, and I think it is all tied up with the initial trauma of leaving Jerusalem, never being able to reconnect with the past. So, like I,
Well, I know you described the episode of visiting your family home
yeah,
from which you were expelled, and now the New York Times used it as a bureau. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I can't even fathom that, you know. I visit Budapest, where I left when I was 13, and the house and the apartment where I grew up is still there in the street in Budapest. I go see, I stand on the outside, but I don't have to deal with, yes, this is my home, this is the balcony where certain experiences took place and all that, but there isn't the sense of somebody having displaced me deliberately and consciously and viciously and being helpless in the face of it.
yeah.
So that's deep. But I must say, um, and here's the part that maybe is hard for you to hear, um, and your parents are not being criticized here, but it's not just what happens to us that creates trauma. It's like like not everything painful and stressful needs to be traumatic if the child is allowed to have their feelings and have those feelings understood and validated and held by the parents. No, it's no criticism of your parents to say that given their situation and perhaps given their upbringing, they were not able to do that for you.
No, and you don't know how much, how strongly I feel that. Many years ago, I had an acquaintance, a man, Jewish psychiatrist,
Yeah.
who was originally they were originally from Lithuania. Now, this man told me a story I never forgot about himself. He
Hmm.
said that when they first arrived in Britain, and I don't know what happened to his father or something. He just was with his mother.
Hmm.
He would go to school, and he was tormented by um, boys attacking him for being a Jew.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I said, "How did you deal with that?" He said, "Honestly, I used to run home as fast as I could. And my mother was there, and she would say to me, 'No, no, those are silly boys. Don't listen to them. They're just stupid.' And she
Hmm.
would make me some soup, and I would feel so much better." And
Yeah.
honestly, he could not have known the effect on me. I thought, God, nobody ever did that for me.
Right. That's that's what entrenches the trauma in your system.
mm,
Not the events, which were, as you said, horrible, but the lack of holding of your emotions.
mm.
And so what's happening now for you, I imagine, is as you began to delve into your past and into your interior environment, all the feelings that you weren't allowed to feel then are now coming up for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And,
true.
and, and it's not simply about the present, it's really about what was unmetabolized in the past. Well, that needs to happen. And as it does, you'll find that it's not endless. I mean, it's never completely over, but nor is it the same. How you relate to it and how you hold your own feelings and what acceptance you can yield to yourself, that's going to change everything.
Mm.
But only if you learn not to reject your own feelings and to criticize yourself for your coping mechanisms. In other words, some self-compassion is what's called for here.
Yes, and you speak more true than maybe you know,
No,
because
no, no, I don't.
no, I tell you why. Because the essence of kindness, that is the really important issue here.
Yeah.
I was not kind to myself. I am not kind to myself, and I have not been kind to many other people.
So here's the thing.
And
Do not criticize yourself for not being kind. Okay? Because then you're doing it again. Okay?
yeah, yeah.
It's not that you're choosing to be a certain way. It's an automatic reaction. But notice when you're not being kind. Just notice it. In other words, not
Mm,
with a sense of self-judgment. I'm not being kind. I'm a terrible person. Drop it.
mm, mm,
Oh, but notice, oh, here's an unkind impulse. Just notice it.
mm.
Because, Ghada, who's the one noticing?
Well, it's certainly me, isn't it?
That's you.
Mm,
The unkindness is not you. Okay?
mm,
That's just
mm,
an ingrained um, defense mechanism. Because to be kind is to be vulnerable. Because when you care about somebody, if they're hurt, then you're hurt. So unkindness itself is a defense. So just notice it. Oh, here comes the unkindness. Just be aware of it. And that way you're strengthening the you that's there all along, that's never been broken.
mm. Very, I don't know what to say, very enriching, very thought-provoking. I'm terribly tempted to ask about you.
Well, before you do, when you say thought-provoking, that's the last thing I want it to be. You've had enough thoughts already. Okay, you don't need more thoughts.
Mm,
So what I'm going to ask you, if I may,
mm.
is just to check in with yourself. And as we have this exchange, what do you notice in your body if you pay attention? Which is not something that you used to do, by the way.
No.
So how about trying it now, if you're open to it?
I don't think I fully understand. So,
Well, you're sitting here talking to me,
yes.
checking with your chest, your belly, your throat. What are you feeling there? What's going on there?
Um, I- yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
Well, don't try and answer. Just check in. Just
Mm,
feel your chest, feel your belly, feel your throat.
mm,
What sensation is there?
mm.
Don't think of the answer because your mind will never give you the answer. Any tension in your body?
Yes, definitely.
That's what I'm asking about. So where is the tension?
I can feel it in my upper arms.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
um,
Okay,
my
good.
yeah. my chest, the central part of my chest.
All
Uh,
right. Can I get you to put your attention on the tension? Just put your attention on it. Just welcome it. It's here. Um, put your attention on it.
mm,
Notice you just took a deep breath. That's good. Just,
mm.
just put your attention on the tension. Are you willing to do that? I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to lead you some path where you don't want to go, but
No,
since
no,
you're
I'm more than willing. Yeah,
okay, then how to put your attention on the tension, would you?
yeah,
Just put your attention on it. Does anything happen when you do that?
yeah.
What do you notice?
Um, well, certainly the first thing I felt was that the tension in my arms went.
Okay.
Um, the the um, the sensation in the chest has not gone,
Hmm.
but I'm aware of my breath in a way that I wasn't before.
Okay. So there's more of you present now.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Okay.
good way of putting it. Yeah.
Well, that's good. All right. Let's get you put your attention on that tension again in your
Mhm.
chest.
Yeah.
Hmm. Notice anything?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's sort of slipped down from the chest to the tummy.
Interesting. Okay. Well, then put your attention on your belly then, on the tongue.
Mm. It's gone.
Okay.
Honestly, it's gone.
So if it's gone, then what's there?
Um, I don't know how to put this up. It's ease.
Ease,
Um,
okay. Ease and spaciousness, maybe.
yeah,
Okay. It's that simple.
right.
Because if a 3-year-old comes to you, or in your case, an 8-year-old, you were what, like 9-year-old, born in 39, you were 9 years old when all that happened. Um, if a 9-year-old comes to you, full of emotion, tension, what do they need from you?
Reassurance, comfort.
Not reassurance. How would you provide them with comfort? I'll tell you. It's a leading question, okay? What you'd say is, it's really hard, isn't it? You feel really tense. You feel scared. You feel
Mm.
upset, don't you? That's what you would do.
Mm.
And then the child, yeah, you know. So
Mm.
that's what you just did for yourself.
Yeah,
You just gave yourself some attention. That's all.
yeah, yes, yes,
That's all that's needed.
yeah, indeed. Yes, yes, yes. What a pity. I never had anybody like you around at any stage in my life.
Well, yeah. What a pity I didn't either.
Yes, yes, yes,
And by the way, I'm still working to be present for myself, you know?
really.
yeah, it's ongoing work. I I've often said this publicly, but I'll tell you, I've written my own epitaph. Um, the inscription on my gravestone, it's going to say, "This was a lot more work than I had anticipated."
Very good.
Yeah,
It's very good.
yeah, yeah. I should patent it. It's good. I should take out a copyright on it. So that's how.
Um,
So that's how it is. Okay, and again, just notice the self-criticism, the judgment. You're not doing it. Your mind is doing it automatically.
yeah.
You just need to notice.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
So it's not that endless, like despite my epitaph, because there's always stuff comes up, but I, the way I relate to myself now is very different than the way I related to myself even a year ago, you know? So
Mm.
it's just life.
Um, yes. I think but I suppose you see in the Palestinian case, it's not, if only it was something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
And you can see how that one could perhaps try to come to terms, all the kind of, the way people describe that. Our problem, is that it's ongoing.
Yeah. And I know I read an interview with you in I think maybe in 2012. Is that when your memoir came out?
No, it came out a long time ago, 2002.
I don't mean Fatima, I mean the other one.
A Return,
Yeah,
2015.
2015. Okay.
Mm.
So you gave an interview, and you said that Israel is finished, and it will be finished. This racist, brutal, psychotic ideology and the state that generates it and which generates the state cannot sustain itself. One way or the other, it's going to go either
Mm.
because the American empire, which supports it,
Mm.
is going to lose its power, which it already is, as we can see,
Mm.
or because of its internal contradictions. Um,
Yeah.
if you look at polls in the United States, at least as many Jews disapprove of Israel these days as do, which is a huge change. So in other words, it's going to end. I know that. And I also know, I've known this for a long time, that at some point in a not too distant future, and that could be decades or 100 years, I don't know when, but historically, in the blink of an eye, Jewish history will look back on Zionism as one of the worst things that ever happened to the Jewish people.
Mm.
Never mind the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's going to end. But,
Yes.
but before it does, it's going to create untold suffering as it
Yeah.
is every day now. And it's going to be vicious. And it gets vicious more every day. And it's digging its own grave, um, but not fast enough for anybody's faced, as
No,
far as I
that's
am
right.
concerned. You
That's right.
know, so the question is, how do Palestinians maintain this spirit of sumud, this spirit of resilience, this spirit
Mm.
of
Mm.
persisting? It's remarkable that they have.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and, you know, um, I know you share the frustration and that all the speaking that you have done and that I have done and that many other people have done have not saved a single finger of a single Palestinian child. So we have to live with this dichotomy of the absolute imperative of speaking out and standing for truth here as best we can, and at the same time recognizing the limitations of what we can actually achieve in the short term. which does not absolve anybody of the duty to speak the truth, but it also means we have to accept our own limitations and our own frailty, I suppose.
Yes, 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 of course, of course, of course. You know, one thing I just want to also tell you, um, I have resented deeply. It's the way that what was done to us forced us to uh, contemplate the history and the suffering of the perpetrators.
You know,
You
I know
know,
The Palestinians are so aware of the Holocaust. I know that. And I know Palestinian friends who are
yeah,
obsessed with the Holocaust.
yeah, yeah. And I,
Yeah,
you know, I just deeply resent that. And I explain, I'm very clear on why that is.
yeah.
It, we as Palestinians really, really should have been left alone. We had nothing to do with any
But,
of this.
but you know what? I'll tell you something. The Holocaust is not responsible for Zionism. Zionism was there before the Holocaust,
Indeed, indeed,
and,
indeed.
and
I know it.
their intentions were very clear. In 1919 or 1920, the head of the British Zionist Commission, Dr. Ader, said that our aim is to make, in as short time as possible, our aim is to make Palestine as Jewish as England is English and America
Yeah,
is American.
yeah,
So the Zionist movement was a racist, supremacist, colonial project right from the get-go. Uh,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Holocaust greatly facilitated their justification and their success, but it's not the cause of it. And if you look at colonial societies everywhere, where was it any different? In North America, they exterminated the population. In South America, they exterminated the population. In New Zealand, in Australia, um, if you look at the mass murders in India, so that you don't need a Holocaust to justify colonialism. You know,
No,
it's
no.
and so long as I don't know if you've seen this wonderful film recently called Palestine 36.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I
that
have.
was that was
Excellent.
that was before the Holocaust, and look at the viciousness, you know. So that just has to do with imperialism and colonialism, and the Holocaust adds another layer and complicates things, but it's not the cause, nor is it the justification.
No, of course not. And I don't mean that. I don't
Yeah,
mean that. I suppose I didn't put it very well. I suppose I could put it by saying, so, because of all this, we were
yeah,
pushed into a situation where we were expected,
yeah,
A, to understand the history of the people who had done all this to us, and B, to sympathize or to accept. And finally, and the thing that I really reject is that there is a parallel in any of this. That basically it's equivalent.
hmm
You know, you've got those and you've got
Well,
these.
there's no equivalence at all. First of all, you don't compare traumas. Um,
Mm,
there was two Israeli Jewish historians at Hebrew University who a few months ago published an article in Haaretz, and they said there's no Auschwitz in Gaza, but there's genocide. So that there'll never be anything like Auschwitz,
mm,
but
mm.
you don't need gas chambers to commit suicide to
No,
commit
indeed,
genocide, you know,
indeed,
and
indeed,
and
absolutely.
and what the Israelis are doing is the inexorable logic of a colonial project where the natives resist, you know,
Yeah,
and um, I'm personally I'm sick of hearing about the Holocaust, and this despite the fact that my grandparents died in it, nearly I did as well, but
mm,
the way there's a kind of an entitled victimization, and
yeah,
that what happened to us was so bad we get to do anything we want.
exactly.
It's outrageous, and it's a total denial of the real meaning of what happened in the Second World War.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I can only listen, I cannot tell you how happy I am that we've had this conversation.
May I make a humble suggestion?
Please.
Read one of my books. The most recent one is called The Myth of Normal: Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. And it's been published in 45 countries, including in Arabic, actually, uh, and Hebrew. And it's been a bestseller in the New York Times and the Sunday Times. And at the very last chapter, I do mention Palestine. It was published 3 years ago now, 2 years, a year before October the 7th, but it has, I talked about how the disillusionment when I found out that the Jewish dream was established by causing a nightmare for the Palestinians.
Hmm.
That's just in the last chapter. But the reason I mentioned the book is I think it'll give you a lot of insight into yourself.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. All right.
I will.
So I've made a sale. Well, that's good.
Okay. Okay, it's such a pleasure, and I hope we meet.
Yeah, that would be lovely. So, we'll work out our schedule in
Okay.
London soon, and then if we can arrange something, of course we will. Lovely
Okay.
to meet you.
Indeed, indeed, likewise.